Hiya Squishers, and welcome back to my Cozy Cwtch for a catch up with Kate, and that's me. And welcome back, and if you're a new viewer, welcome to my Cozy Cwtch, and today we're going to be chatting only, the whole shebang about Caitlet's. What is a Caitlet, I hear you ask? It is none other than my most versatile one-piece knit that I've created for you and for me to experience the ability of, maybe, if it's okay with you, personalizing your knits in a way that maybe you might not have done before. So the Caitlet. Let's begin the tale of how Kate created the Caitlet. Well, mostly it's quite simple. I get very stuck into stuff. And when I get very stuck into stuff, it takes me a while to emerge. And once I emerge, sometimes my thoughts have changed. And one of the patterns that I'm going to drink something in a second. One of the patterns that I've made in recent times is on my list of most favorite knits because it is just so simple and so easy. And if you're new to knitting, I'm pretty sure within a couple of ticks, you too could knit this. It is my squishy dot blanket. Now, why am I talking about squishy dot blankets? This is all about Caitlet's. Well, the squishy dot blanket is where the Caitlet began. I am wearing a Caitlet right now. This is a two skein wonder. I've got some slub and some sock, but the Caitlet began when I was making my squishy dot blankets. And this is a secret I'll share with you, and the pattern is free to download on my website for both of these patterns, the squishy dot blanket and the Caitlet. This is where I began, the squishy dot extravaganza blanket. Well, it's not an extravaganza because you never know what you're going to get. I have lots of versions of them everywhere. But when I got to like max capacity of squishy dot blankets, I still couldn't let it go. I couldn't stop knitting the dot. So I wondered if I could create something wearable using a pattern I've already got that I love so much that I could knit day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, and basically clothe myself and the girls for lots of different seasons. So what happened? Well, I began to explore by simply cutting out. Let's show you some of the first adventures. Cutting out the center of, hang on, a squishy dot blanket. So we have transformed the blanket design into a wearable piece. Now I could stick this over my head, but mostly I can only layer so much. Like, it is going to get very warm in here in a moment with all the squish flying around. But essentially, if you've had problems casting on a fiddly diddly squishy dot blanket and your thumbs and fingers go everywhere, you're going to have a lot more fun and a lot more ease casting on one of these. Oh, that rhymed! So by cutting out the center start of my squishy dot blanket, I automatically created a neckline, which is something I learned after I've made loads of tops and loads of this and loads of that and lots of tubes. I had a neckline. So I thought, I'll carry on. And using the pattern of the squishy dot blanket, I discovered that this creates the most drapey, soft, airy, movable textile with lots of different points. Because as you know by now, if you have knit the squishy dot blanket, it's not a true dot. It's almost like a spider's web. It grows and grows, and it has these beautiful pointed pieces that nip in and out all the way around. So you always have some really interesting coverage, which I like, because sometimes when it's just a straight shape, you can tell when it's up or down at the back. But this one, it just flows and falls so nicely. So after this, which was where I started experimenting with landscapes, I thought, now Kate, what if we see about colour? Because landscapes are my thing. I took a big bunch of landscapey colours and I did the same again, cast on at the top, and these adaptations for the necklines and the bottoms are simply just different stitches. So we've got like a moss or a seed stitch around the neck and the same to accompany the bottom. But in the middle, it's the middle bit that you can have so much fun. So this is another version that I made, same pattern, but adding some texture right here and right down here to really pull all this together, because my ultimate goal is going somewhere. At this stage, I already had a landscape tube, because cowls and tubes are my thing, like tubes, and one piece knits, which is where I went from tubes to one piece. I wanted to do all my knitting in one. And when I started doing my Caitlet, I was like, bingo, I have won the knit prize, because automatically I was like, this is my personalized buildable wardrobe. But then I was like, oh my gosh, why stop there? Why have it a two-piece? Because you don't need a two-piece, which is why the Caitlet pattern I love so much. It's taken me quite a while to put together, because there are so many variations available that you can think about before you cast on. And it also means if you love the pattern, you will have lots of different opportunities to explore different necklines, because what happens when you combine a cowled neck with a squishy dot blanket Caitlet? This, let me get a hanger. Let me do a hanger so I can show you what it looks like together. It's just, oh. And this one is one of my favorites, mostly because it's in slub. Number two, because it's inspired by a painting I did on my birthday, because I went metal detecting in the field and it was gloriously sunny. And then it just rained and everything, all the contrast with all the plants and the trees, it was just luscious green. Like the greens were just popping out of the bushes, off the floor. And this was my birthday inspired metal detecting walk piece, complete with a cowl neck. So this piece is another exploration in the Caitlet knits. So just by combining the Caitlet the Caitlet pattern with the other amendments in the pattern to have a cowl neck, you now have yourself a very snuggly, almost a poncho, I imagine. But this, I love the fact that they're so quick to knit. You can make them relatively quick and you can make them to match outfits. Now I made some of mine to fit underneath some of my jackets because I've got some gorgeous tartan type ones. I love a big old woolen one. So I like the fact that I can layer up without bulking up all of my clothes. And these type of knits where you can just sling them on like this under a jacket works a dream for me. So what happened next? Well, when you combine a neck with a Caitlet, you can vary, like these have all got tails on them. Tails! You can vary loads of things. So you can go for a little short number. So very similar to the length on this one here. This one is just an over the shoulder piece with a short cowl neck. This one was very much inspired, undeniably, by my sunset paintings, because I just have so much fun exploring those. It gives a lot of my knits depth. So this has got a short neck here, and then it fades and gradually builds out to this lovely, lovely trim at the end. And that's one of the things that I wanted to say to you, is all of these Caitlets so far, boom, 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 boom. Oh, I've got another one to show you. All of them. This was the very first. All of these Caitlets are the same pattern essentially. You can get so much out of one pattern that I don't ever want to have to do another pattern like this is going to be my forever pattern. So you can go for something short, or if you're up for an adventure and you have an absolute ton of scraps, because I always have a ton of scrappy yarn everywhere and I have small girls who will pretty much steal everything I make this in pink, you can go for a scrappy one. So you can just go absolutely wild and use one stitch from the neck down knit just to get that lovely rolled edge, which I'm a big fan of. So the distinctive difference in a lot of these Caitlets massively is the colour changes, but also just the simple differences in the neckline and the bottom. This is one that Tabby has off me because she stole it, because I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. But you can go a step further and there's a huge variation. That's not right. You can experience some different necklines by not even going for a cowl. You can just go for the straight up pattern, which I've got available, download free on the website for DK. And it looks like this in boucle. This is just a 2 skein wonder. This kit is in the shop as well, but this is the pattern cast straight on as the pattern depicts, and it gives you this lovely neckline here, very much like mine. This one, very much like, they're all mine, like this one here, but because the slub and the sock has got a different personality, it'll roll. Whereas this yarn, the Boucle Decay, oh, this one here, Boucle Decay, has got a much more fluffy, cloud-like, relaxed experience to it. So it lays in a different way, which is why I wanted to knit so many different ones to show you, because you might have a different preference to what you want to make it with, and also your yarn stash is going to look different to mine. So I wanted to give you options. So there is one version in the Boucle, but another option to look at, because this is what we're doing today. We are going through all of the Caitlet's so that you can find the best one that you want to knit when you go to knit it. This one is one of my uber favorites for a couple of reasons, because I'm using two of my favorite colorways together. Like this is my awesome duo, Elma Grey and Elma. This is Elma in DK, my normal DK, and this is Elma in Boucle in the grey one. And this is exactly the same pattern, but the color orientation is different. So I've striped it, but you can see what I'm talking about. This is the squishy dot blanket, all the way through and through, 2 and 2, every 2 rows. So if you have made my squishy dot blanket and you are desiring another one, but you have no reason good enough to make another one, the Caitlet is your thing. And because you can add and change and amend them, like this is the straight pattern, you can just make them to coordinate with whatever you want. So this is another one. Do I have another one? Oh, I've got a few upstairs as well. But today I wanted to jump on and say to you, the Caitlet is for you to customize. And as you know a lot about my patterns, I was going to hang it. I'm not going to hang it. As you know, a lot about my patterns, or my patterns a lot of the times, are for me. And I love to freestyle, which means that when I knit, I like to explore. And I also like to find out what I like. And I think that's the most empowering thing about knitting for yourself, is that you get to find out what you like. So there are loads of options for you to try out with this Caitlet. You can try something with a slub base and you'll be like, oh my gosh, you won't be able to stop popping the slub bobbles from the inside out, and you'd be like, oh, the texture. Like this one, if I just got up to show you, look at the texture. I love it. Or you might be thinking to yourself, I'd like just something short to go under my jacket to keep my neck warm, which is what I like doing this type of season, because that's why we're releasing it now. It's getting cooler. It's September, and I'm going to have to be standing outside in the playground picking up the children, and it's going to be cold. And you just can't have all the layers on. So something like this could do you a treat, but the alternative is you could go really long, and that's one of my next exploring pieces. Is I'm going to make a really big one that I can use when I sit down on my sofa that acts almost like a blanket, because the difference between these is the amount of yarn you use and some colouring and just some trimming on the edge. So there's a huge amount of scope for you to make pieces that coordinate. I'm going to make mine to coordinate with my sofa. I won't lie, I've got lots of greens and blues on my sofa. So something like this would be amazing, because I could put it on. And also, this is going to sound funny, I have managed to fool the kids once. They came downstairs and they couldn't see me. I was just sitting under, not even like hiding, under my meadow green blanket. And they were just like, where's mummy? I was like, I'm just right here. So just for fun, if I made a larger one and I sat down on the sofa whilst I knit, or you might be, I hide my hands, something like this would just go gorgeous, especially on the back of my sofa as well. I like to think about just throwing them around so they're easy to grab and snuggle up. So there you go, my squishes. The Caitlet pattern is finally here in the shop. It's for free to download, and you can use any yarn at hand, or you can specifically choose colours that you like. And you could do it in a two-tone way. A lot of my knits are two-tone colours. Like this one here is just 2 colours. This one here is one solid colour in the background. This is chocolate slub. with lots of meadowy and hydrangea type colours going all the way through. And this type of colour scheme would work beautifully. And if I didn't have the middle, just imagine that. Oh. And I have transformed some of these into jumpers, like the sunset piece, but I have found a much more effective way of doing it. So I will release the pattern for that in the future, because I found a really fabulous way of controlling some bits, which I don't mind a bit of uncontrollability, but sometimes you want to know that each time you make it, it's going to be exactly the same. So this piece is for you to customize and go wild with, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, because the pattern is very simple, and once you start and you realize that it's not very complicated, and then you finish it and you're like, oh, line up your next bundle of squish, cast on and get going. But there you go, squishers. I just wanted to make sure that you knew how much fun these are going to be to knit. Look, it's so much fun. My girls could probably do with different colour outfits, and also ones to go out in the garden and scrub around in, and also nice ones that they can cozy up in. So again, there's never enough, never enough. Bundles are available in the shop for a few of these. Otherwise, just go wild with colour. And until the next time we meet, I shall bid you farewell and have a wonderful time crafting. And do give it a go. It's seriously very easy and a lot of fun. You need some circular needles, some stitch markers, and the pattern off the shop, and away you go. And I'll catch you soon. Bye, squishers!